Now, according to the BBC, UK authorities say Russia's domestic intelligence agency was likely behind the plane crash that appears to have killed Wagner mercenary group leader Yevgeny Prigozhin. Russian officials say he was among the 10 people aboard the private jet that took off from Moscow yesterday. This all comes after Prigozhin led a failed coup to oust the Kremlin leader 2 months ago. Now, for more on this, let's bring in CBS News foreign policy and national security contributor, General H.R. McMaster, a retired U.S. Army lieutenant general who served as national security advisor under former President Trump. First of all, I want to get your reaction on this. When you heard this, knowing what you know, what was your reaction to this?
Well, of course, Putin was behind it, and this fits a pattern. You don't have to be an intelligence analyst to come to that conclusion. I mean, it fits a long pattern of Putin brutally assassinating, murdering those who were in opposition to him. Remember, Litvinenko in London in 2006 was murdered in a crazy way with polonium, which causes a slow, painful death. Sergei Magnitsky, who knows where all Putin's money is hidden, was murdered in prison in 2009. In 2015, Boris Nemtsov, remember, he was walking across the bridge right next to the Kremlin, was gunned down. Voronikov in 2017 was an exiled critic of Putin who was shot in Kyiv. I mean, the list goes on. Journalists, Anna Politkovskaya, who covered the Chechen war. So it's clear this fits a pattern of Sergei Skripal, the attempted murder of him in 2017, right, using a radiological agent. So hey, it's pretty clear that this was coming, I think, for Prigozhin, and of course he and 9 others were murdered. I think we'll find out by a missile. If you look at the patterns on the side of that aircraft, it's consistent with a blast pattern from an anti-aircraft missile.
And let me ask you this: everything has a cause and effect, but if what we understand, if you're causing the cause, what's the desired effect that Putin wants from this?
It's fear, right? If you think about what's holding his regime together, it's mainly fear. And these authoritarian regimes, the leader, the dictator, doesn't have to be that strong. He just needs to be stronger than any kind of organized opposition. So this is a signal to anybody, and it's really important that this shoot down occurred alongside of some other actions, right? Extending the sentence of the opposition leader Navalny at the same time, and then firing the chief of the Air Force, who had opposed Putin and was close to Prigozhin. I think this delay, people are wondering, hey, why did it take him so long? I think what he was doing is going after a lot of Prigozhin's support base as well, assessing the degree to which taking Prigozhin out might elicit a response from his organization. I think he protected himself against that, and then ordered this murder. Was likely what happened.
That's actually what I was going to ask you about, because it looks like, on this plane was Prigozhin and then sort of the number 2 guy. But now you have fighters. You have fighters in Belarus. You have fighters, in different countries in Africa that I would think would be pretty loyal to Prigozhin. What happens with the Wagner Group fighters now?
Yeah, I think, Emery, they just get rebranded, so it won't have a big impact in Ukraine. They're not fighting in Ukraine right at the moment. It might have a bit of an impact in Africa, where they're active and causing all sorts of trouble for the United States and France and others. They're behind some of these coups in Africa recently that brought in juntas and military leaders who were hostile to the United States, not friendly to U.S. and French and other interests. So, I think it could have an impact there. But you got to remember, these people are criminals, right? They're thugs. I mean, they're not loyal to anybody really, except the paycheck that they're going after or the loot that they're able to accumulate when they're operating in places like Western Africa.
So now we see the ultimate response to Prigozhin's, attempted mutiny, right? That you may live for another day, but you might not. Well, we don't know who brought the plane down, but the point is that, this is a pattern that we've certainly seen happen with Putin. But ultimately, what was the result of that mutiny? Even though Prigozhin is now probably dead, do you think that the mutiny still sort of shed a light on weaknesses that Putin would have preferred not to have displayed?
Emery, absolutely. So he can't get back, this impression of invincibility, right? So I think you see some cracks now, and you see it also in some of the crackdowns against those who were his closest supporters. I mean, this war veteran and far right blogger Igor Girkin, who was recently arrested as well. I mean, shows that he's going after any kind of source of opposition. I think it's also important to note, there's going to be the governor's election on the 10th of September, and those elections still matter a little bit in Russia. Will Putin's picks, will his favorites be elected, or will that show a little bit of a chink in his armor? And then, of course, there are presidential elections, which are a scam, but they're scheduled for 2024. Putin doesn't look very strong right now, I don't think. But again, he has a huge security apparatus. There are more political prisoners in Russia today than there were during the height of the Cold War. There are more people in his internal security services than there are in the armed forces. And the reason I think that the Russian forces are still fighting in Ukraine is because of fear, right? There are FSB agents, in all of these units. And if somebody says, hey, I don't think this is a good idea to continue this war, or I don't think I want to continue fighting, or I don't want to die here, what they do is they face summary execution. So this was important for Putin to take out Prigozhin, to murder these other 9 people as well, because fear is all he's got going for him.
General H.R. McMaster, it's always great talking to you. Thank you, sir.
Great to see you. Thank you, Emery.